Hey all you cats and chicks out there, welcome back to Control Players Unite. I'm your host, Dr. Red. Today we will be reviewing all of the drawing Pokemon and trainer cards in the current standard format. Now, drawing cards is important to the majority of Pokemon decks, and the Control deck is no different. Simply because there is overlap with aggressive or aggro decks does not mean something is or is not Control. One might also include, for instance, the free card search cards in this list, but as that is a separate category, we are excluding it here. We are also excluding any Pokemon drawing 1 or 2 cards only unless it is on an ability, because then it can be used from the bench. And we are excluding trainer cards that for any reason draw only 1 or 2 cards. Some cards will have an elaboration, others will not. Let's begin. Beautifly has Stoked Straw. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 6 in your hand. Hisuian Electrode has a free attack triple draw wherein you draw 3 cards. Hisuian Lilligant V, draw cards until you have 6 cards in your hand, and its V-Star form is sometimes used in Wo-Chien decks to speed up acceleration because it allows you to put 5 grass cards into your hand if I'm not mistaken. Radiant Venusaur is sometimes used for decks that don't have any draw power, and thus this becomes its only draw power, especially if you're getting rid of cards from your hand constantly. Its Sunny Bloom ability allows you to draw cards until you have 4 in your hand. Victini, shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 6. Empoleon, emergency resurfacing. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in your discard pile and you have no cards in your hand, you can put this Pokemon on your bench, and if you do, draw 3. Kingdra, Seething Currents ability. This is popular in meme or rogue Palkia V-Star decks. Seething Currents ability states that once during your turn, you may have either player shuffle their hand, put it on the bottom of their deck, and then that player will draw 4 cards. Luvdisc, shuffle your hand to your deck and draw 5. Octillery has the Suction Cup draw ability. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may draw 3 cards. Radiant Greninja has the ability Concealed Cards. Once during your turn, you may draw 2 cards if you discard an energy from your hand. Oricorio has Peb Up, shuffle your hand into your deck, and then draw a card for each benched Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, which could theoretically be 1 or 2, but it's highly unlikely, so we included it. Rotom, shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 6. Rotom V, extremely popular in all sorts of decks from Charizard EX to block Snorlax. Instant charge ability, draw 3 cards once during your turn. If you use this ability, your turn ends. Rotom V-Star has Conversion Star ability. As a V-Star power, once during your turn, you may use this ability, discard any number of cards from your hand, and then draw that many cards. Cleffa, extremely popular in all sorts of decks, including Charizard EX even. Grasping Draw, draw cards until you have 7 in your hand. Kirlia, extremely popular in all sorts of things, especially Gardevoir EX. You must discard a card from your hand to use this ability. Once during your turn, you can draw 2. Exact same thing on the new Baby Gardevoir. Once during your turn, you may draw 2 cards, discarding a card from your hand. Lunatone, in the Luna Solrock decks, discard a card from your hand. If you do, draw 3. Mew EX has Restart. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 3 cards in your hand. Tinkaton, you must discard a card from your hand in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may draw 3 cards. That's paired with Tinkaton EX, which does damage according to how many cards you have in your hand. Togetic, each player draws 3. Togekiss, draw cards until you have 8 cards in your hand. Wordier, Hurried Gate, once during your turn you may draw a card, but again, it's an ability, not an attack, so we included it. Xatu, Clairvoyant Sense ability, once during your turn you may attach a basic Psychic Energy from your card from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon. If you do, draw 2 cards. Hisuian Decidueye V-Star, which was featured in a World Championship winning deck, has the Star of Fortune V-Star power. Once during your turn you may draw cards until you have 8 in your hand. Absol, Awareness. You may discard a number of cards from your hand, draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. Hisuian Samurott, Wily Stance, discard a card from your hand and then draw 3. Honchkrow, triple draw, draw 3. Liepard has the same ability as Kirlia, discard a card and draw 2. Bronzor, draw cards, leave the same number in your hand as your opponent. Glaring Berserker V, feeling fine, draw 3. That's a fun meme deck. Goldango EX is an archetype. It's often paired with Palkia V-Star. It can also stand on its own. It has the coin bonus. Once during your turn, you may draw a card. If you're in the active spot, you draw an additional card. And that stacks as well, so you can draw up to 5 cards per turn. Metagross. Emergency entry. If you drew this Pokemon from your deck at the beginning of your turn, your bench isn't full, put it onto the bench. If you do, draw 3. Revavroom Rumbling Engine. You may discard an energy card from your hand and then draw until you have 6 in your hand. This hasn't seen any play either. Zamazenta V Regal Stance. Once during your turn, you may discard your hand and draw 5. If you use this ability, your turn ends. Noivern, draw cards until you have 7 in your hand. Raging Bolt EX, discard your hand and draw 6. That's getting more popularity as well. Regidrago, extremely popular in the Regigigas, the Regi's deck, and also in Regidrago V-Star. Dragon's Horde, once during your turn, if this Pokemon's in the active, draw until you have 4 cards in your hand. Bibarel, the crown jewel of draw cards in this format. Pretty much every deck can fit it in. It's used all the time. It's even been in World Championship winning decks, at least one of them. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 5 in your hand with Industrious Incisors. Dodrio, Zooming Draw. Once during your turn, you may put a damage counter on this Pokemon to draw a card. Dudunsparce, this is becoming more and more popular with pretty much, I shouldn't say everything, but any number of builds can fit it in. It's very popular with Roaring Moon, EX, and Ancient Box. Once during your turn, you may draw 3. If you drew cards this way, shuffle this Pokemon and all attach cards into your deck. I also think you can do it if you don't have any cards left in your deck pile, so that you don't deck out, but you'd have to check because live lets you do that. I don't know if the actual rules in real life will let you do that. Farigiraf, either face, choose a player. That player shuffles their hand to their deck, draws 4. Hisuian V-Star, during your turn, you may discard your hand and draw 7. It's basically a Professor's Research. Kangaskhan EX, draw 3 cards. Lugia V, discard a card and draw 3. Skwovet, once during your turn, you shuffle your hand and put it at the bottom. If you put any cards at the bottom of your deck, draw a card. This is often paired with Bibarel, so you can draw an additional 4. Squawkabilly EX, popular in any number of decks. Once during your turn, you can discard your hand and draw 6. You can't use more than 1, though. And we're back to the beginning. Let's go to the trainers. You have Awakening Drum. Draw a card for each of your ancient Pokemon in play, popular with Ancient Box. Cycling Road hasn't seen any play. Once during each player's turn, that player may discard a basic energy in order to draw a card. Jubilife Village, during each player's turn, that player may shuffle their hand to their deck and draw 5. If they do, their turn ends. Hasn't seen any competitive play as far as I know, though I do see it in meme decks. I also played it in a cast form deck back on the E-Block. That was pretty fun. Brandon has seen absolutely no play. I think I saw it once, maybe in the thousands of times I've played this game online. Draw a card for each benched Pokemon, and only when this card is the last card in your hand. Brashius, count the cards in your hand, shuffle those cards into your deck, and draw that many cards plus 1. So if you have 5 cards in your hand and you play Brashius, you then have 4. So you would shuffle those 4 cards into your deck and then draw 5. So it's basically the amount of cards you have in your hand with Brashius in your hand is what it comes down to. Not played very often. Troy's not played very often. Each player reveals their hand, draw 3. Cynthia's Ambition kind of got play with single prize decks, but not really. Draw cards till you have 5 in your hand. If your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, draw until you have 8 in your hand. Dendra sees absolutely no play as well. Put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. If you do, draw until you have 5 in your hand. Faulkner, draw 2. If you have a Stadium, draw 2 more. Grusha, I've used this with success in energy list decks. Draw cards till you have 5 in your hand. If none of your Pokemon have energy cards attached, draw until you have 7 in your hand instead. Iono is extremely popular, the crown jewel of these types of trainer cards. Each player shuffles their hand and puts it on the bottom of their deck. If either player does this, each player draws a card for each of their remaining prize cards. This one and Bibarel are the ones you want to aim for in all of your deck building. By default, Iscan, draw 2. If your active Pokemon has a Hisuian in its name, draw 2 more. Judge, an extremely powerful disruption card. Each player shuffles their hand to their deck and draws 4. Kamado, choose a card in your hand, discard the other cards, and if you do, draw 4. Katie, shuffle your hand to your deck and draw 8, then your turn ends. Mela, this is getting more popular with decks like Incineroar EX. You can use this card if one of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn. Attach a basic fire energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. If you do, draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. Kind of functions as the E-Block Raihan in a way, if you remember that one. Miriam, shuffle up to 5 Pokemon from your discard pile into your hand, and if you do, draw 3 cards. Norman sees no play, draw 2 cards. If your opponent's active Pokemon is an EX, draw 2 more. There's no way to guarantee that you're going to face an EX Pokemon when you need to use this card, so it's pretty much useless. Parasol Lady, shuffle your hand to your deck, draw 4. If you go second, it's your first turn, draw 8. I've seen this card exactly once on the ladder in a meme deck. Professor Saw's Vitality is extremely popular for Ancient Box and Great Tusk Mill. Choose up to 2 of your ancient Pokemon and attach a basic energy from your discard pile to each of them. If you attach energy in this way, draw 3 cards. Professor's Research, extremely powerful card, been around for a long time. It fits in a lot of decks. Discard your hand and draw 7. That's all it does, and that's sometimes what you need. Just need to refresh your hand, start over, and that's that. Roxanne, extremely powerful in any number of decks, especially Control. It's also used a lot in Lost Box decks. You can use this card if your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining. Each player shuffles their hand to their deck. You draw 6, your opponent draws 2. So it's a devastating disruption card. Rhyme, draw 3, and switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench. Your opponent chooses the new active Pokemon. Serena, you can choose 1. Discard up to 3 cards in your hand, and if you do, draw cards till you have 5. Or switch out, or basically use it as a boss's orders, a gusting card. Switch out your opponent's benched Pokemon V with their active. Wallace, draw 3. Your opponent may draw a card. If they do, draw 1 more. I've seen this once in a meme deck. Worker, this used to be really popular in Control decks like Snorlax, but it's just fallen out of favor. Not sure why. It's pretty powerful because not only do you draw 3, you can discard a stadium in play. I think it's because Path to the Peak has rotated. That was on the E block. Extremely powerful for shutting down rule box abilities. So now that it's gone, there's no need to have Worker around because you can use your abilities whenever you please. Youngster, shuffle your hand to your deck, draw 5. This is only in meme decks. Then, for the sake of completion, I included Gift Energy. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, draw until you have 7 cards in your hand. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you learned something. Hope you're doing well. And please have a good rest of your day. Take care of yourselves, and God bless you.